The lab-grown diamonds is quite literally a movement right now, which is shaping up and also shaping up the consumer trends in the luxury space.
From On You, which is Anya in a more Gen Z way. So, so we keep hearing, and the good thing is that in our store, we keep hearing this all day long.
We also have lab-grown diamonds and the real diamonds.
So, lab-grown diamonds are chemically, physically, optically similar to or same as natural diamonds.
Coming to that, is it very easy to spot the difference between lab-grown and diamond?
Typically, the certificate that the gemological institutes give, they specify and write whether it's a natural diamond or a lab-grown diamond.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast Brand New You. And today we will explore a little bit about purpose driven brands and the stories behind it. Today, we will literally have a sparkling discussion, quite literally, because we have the founder of Anya Diamonds, Himani, with us. So, Himani, how are you today?
I'm doing very good.
Yes.
It's a lovely day.
It's lovely because I'm seeing you. I think we met in a networking event last time, and it's been quite a while since I have seen you.
Yeah, I think when we'd met, I was just doing the initial discussions and had started experimenting, but we were not live as such. So yeah, it's been
Yeah.
crazy, right? It's almost been 9 months.
Yeah, I think when I met you, you were just building it out and you had the thought, you handed me over a brochure, and I still have that brochure with me. So I think that was a lovely.
Oh, lovely. I mean, yeah, we've done multiple iterations of the brochure now, but yeah.
Yeah. So, Himani, I think we would love to know a little bit more about you as well as your journey with Anya Diamond so far.
Right. So, I have a typical background of engineering, passing out from IIT Guwahati, joining Ola, worked in the startup ecosystem for 8 years, various places like Ola, InMobi, X210X. Then my last stint was as MyGate. So before starting Anya, I was the director of product at MyGate. 4 years, bunch of new initiatives, and then I decided that now is the time that I wanted to pursue something. So started Anya. So yeah, it's a different world altogether. Coming from product and tech background to doing jewelry now. So yeah, it's exciting. And Anya is into lab-grown diamond jewelry space, and the space is obviously picking up. It's a huge market. And India is now also the third largest exporter of lab-grown diamonds. So clearly the future is going to be jewelry and diamonds and lab-grown diamonds from India. So I feel we're well positioned for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the lab-grown diamonds is quite literally a movement right now, which is shaping up and also shaping up the consumer trends in the luxury space, which I think is really good so far. But coming to the name Anya, what inspired that name and any story behind that?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of funny when I tell people that it took me more time to decide the name of the brand than it took me to launch my first retail store. I mean, literally, there were 100 names being scratched here and there, and I would wake up, find a new name, and the next day scratch it off. And for some reason or the other, and few names that I shortlisted, we were not getting them. So finally, it clicked me that I should look at the purpose at which I'm starting this brand, which was to create artistic pieces that meet the individual expressions of a person, and they should feel good when they're wearing our pieces. And that literally gave us the tagline, which is art that looks good on you. So that looks good on you is how Anya got formed. Anya doesn't have a meaning of its own. It's a coined term from on you, which is Anya in a more Gen Z way. So so we keep hearing, and the good thing is that in our store, we keep hearing this all day long. When people are trying out stuff, hey, you know what, this looks good on you, that looks good on you. So I think it was very natural, and it just felt that we hit home with the name.
Yeah, I think the name Anya or naming of any particular venture that you have is really important. And that if we hit the nail right, and I think you've hit the nail right with the Gen Z term, which also captures the personal brand of the person. It also captures the inner emotions of the person. So it's a beautiful blend of the person as well as what they want to craft. So I think it's a really nice name, Himani.
Yeah, I think it ended up happening to be scientifically also right. Someone told me it's two syllable, your tongue rolls up when you say Anya, and all of those things. And the first week of launch in the retail store, people came and said, "Oh, so how old are you guys?" And I said, "We're just 1 month old." And they said, "Oh, but we just read Anya, and it felt like a very familiar brand, and as if like we know this brand for many years." So I think that date, I had sensed that we've, got the name right.
Lovely. I think going back to the science bit of it, we also have lab grown diamonds and the real diamonds. So I would love to know what is actually the difference between both of them in terms of trust, in terms of durability, in terms of quality. So how do you differentiate it?
Yeah, so actually, some people say that lab diamonds are similar to natural diamonds, and we say, you know what, it's not similar, it's same. So lab grown diamonds are chemically, physically, optically similar to or same as natural diamonds. Chemically meaning their chemical composition, the molecular structure, the 3D structure in which a diamond is formed. Optically meaning the same reflection, same fire and brilliance, the refractive index. And physically meaning, again, hardness on a 10 on 10 scale of like on most scale, diamond test 10 on 10, and the same thing is valid for lab grown diamonds. So if you throw a diamond, it would just not break. So that's what it means when we say it's chemically, physically, and optically same. And lab diamonds also are graded under the 4 C's of diamond, which is cut, color, clarity, and carat. Just how natural diamonds are graded, and by the same institutes like GIA, IGI. So, I mean, there is no difference apart from the fact that one is a man-made innovation and the other one is Mother Earth's giving to the mankind. So, apart from the fact that their sources and origins are different, there is nothing that sets them apart.
Yeah, quite. It's quite interesting to know. And also, I think nowadays the consumers are also knowing the differences between both of them. That is coming to that, is it very easy to spot the difference between lab grown and diamond?
No, actually, it is not. You cannot spot the difference at all with your naked eyes or under a 10x, 20x magnification. You would need to do a gemological test. Typically, the certificate that the gemological institutes give, they specify and write whether it's a natural diamond or a lab-grown diamond. But other than that, there is no way. A jeweler with 100 years of experience can't differentiate. And neither, like the microscopes that we typically see, they cannot. So it's hard. It's very hard.
Yeah. So I think then, at least for the naked eye or for the person wearing it, it almost feels and sees the same, right? The sight as well as between both the lab grown as well as the real. But coming to that, what about the cost factor of it? I've heard from my research, at least I've heard that lab grown is 40% lesser than the real diamond, but you can tell your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so actually it depends on the sizes of the stone as well. So you're right, when it comes to like the smaller diamonds, the cluster diamonds as we call it, which is what we've mostly been used to so far when we were buying diamonds. We all know diamonds as those small things, right? So those, yes, are 40 to even 50% cheaper when it comes to lab diamond. But your solitaires, which is like a single stone, for example, the one that I'm wearing, like the 2 carat, right? So these are 90% cheaper than compared to your mine diamond. So if you get a VVS EF of, let's say, a 1 carat in a traditional jeweler, which is doing natural, they would roughly charge around 7 lakhs. And that then the lab grown diamonds would just be around 70,000. So it's 10% of the cost actually. So the savings is a lot more higher. And the more you go for bigger rocks, which means you're going for a 2 carat or a 3 carat. So imagine a 3 carat stone. The stone itself is almost around 30 lakhs in natural diamond. And that you can easily get for, let's say, a 2.1 lakh. So that's the difference between the price actually kind of increases exponentially as you go for larger and larger carats.
Yes.
So it's way more affordable than natural.
Yes. So that means to say, I think the trends must be shifting even further, where people younger in age are also maybe able to afford a lab-grown diamond these days, right?
Yes, affordability is definitely at the core of the rise of lab-grown diamonds, for sure. A lot more accessible it is now for all kinds of users, even the Gen Zs or millennials. Apart from obviously being eco-friendly and sustainable. So I think those also are other factors that are driving the growth of lab-grown diamonds.
Yes. Coming to the Gen Z aspect as well as the youngsters who are trying, I've heard that diamonds are mainly for occasions, at least traditionally they were for certain occasions. But I think you can also give a perspective on how the consumer trends are changing now. Is it for occasions or is it for daily wear? How do you see it?
I think that wave of wearing diamonds daily had come from the 2014 itself, when the start of CaratLane and Bluestone came. They actually broke that diamonds are for occasions only. So I think the part of it was already solved for when it came to fine jewelry. I think with lab grown diamonds, despite the fact that you can obviously go for daily wear jewelry, I think the aspirational aspect of owning a diamond is coming into play. So it's not about I can wear a diamond daily, but I want to wear a bigger solitaire. I want to wear a diamond necklace, or I want to wear an exclusive piece. I want colored diamonds. So I want a fancier shape. So I think the desire aspect of owning a beautiful, exquisite diamond piece is much more real with lab grown, more than to say, I'm wearing diamonds every day. Because, yes, I think diamonds, even with the cluster diamonds, even though it's poor quality, but I guess were accessible to people since the last couple of years. But here it becomes like sort of affordable luxury. Now you can own solitaires, and you can experiment a lot more with diamonds. So
Yes. So I think affordability, accessibility are the keywords. And also, of course, aspiration.
Yes.
You touched upon a very good point. I think one more point is sustainability, because I read that to mine 1 carat of diamond, it basically takes 240 tons of earth. And that is during traditional mining. But for a lab grown, since it's in the lab, it's literally lab to life. You are actually saving earth over there. So I think it's very sustainable in nature.
Yeah, I completely resonate with that point. You're almost mimicking the same process. Almost like 20% of the sun's heat, you could say, that is being applied under controlled temperatures, either be it gas chambers or other things. So that way, two methods to actually synthesize them. I wouldn't go into the details. One is HPHT and CVD. But in both forms combined, you get a purer rough diamond with less than 5% of the total carbon emissions that happen. And not just that, soil erosion and the whole controversies around blood diamond, mining workers losing their lives. So I think the whole lot of aspects of the environment as well as labor laws all just, are sorted. And you're getting a very beautiful, very pure form of diamond.
Yes, absolutely. And going back to the core, which is Ornia, I would really like to know from your end, what were the early challenges that you faced when you were building Ornia?
Okay. So it might be a little bit nostalgic, at the same time slightly embarrassing, but I'll try and answer that. So, when you first think that you want to do this startup, and I was really passionate about lab grown diamonds. I've been a consumer for 4 years. So I had all planned in my head, like I know the product, I know the consumer and stuff like that. And I have whole thing planned out, and you said, okay, you'll leave the job and you'll do this. But the reality hits you after 1 month when you're doing, and the start is always slow, right? So leaving a very high paying job, suddenly you're like, oh, I was at a certain level doing such amazing work, and here I am sitting in a store and figuring this, like small tiny aspects of things. So that was one big challenge, to just say, you know what, it's going to be fine. And the second one, obviously, hiring in the beginning. So I remember the first retail store, for the first 1.5 months, I was alone as a founder, also working as the sales staff. I handled each customer on my own. And there were times when there would just like be 4 to 5 customers at once, or couples who would come in, and then I was juggling between all of them. And that was the time also, because the brand was so new. It was hard for people to believe into the vision, and they were like, why should we leave like our prestigious Tanishq and CaratLanes of the world? So I think that was challenging to get your first few initial hires, I would say. Also because you have a very high bar set when you're looking for your initial team. So hiring was definitely one of them. And thereafter just learning. For me, I think it was a new space altogether. I don't come from a jewelry background, so just like understanding what you really mean by a cathedral setting or a crown setting, or what a diamond girdle is, what a table is, how do you really understand the quality of a diamond and stuff like that. So jewelry, diamond, all of that, it started to feel a bit overwhelming, but I think we all when we get into it, the curiosity just takes over and then you learn everything. So no, it's
Yes,
fine.
I think kudos to you that you could go into the depths of a subject that you might not be totally familiar with, and also to handle the early challenges as a founder just is sometimes it's a little overwhelming. But yeah, I could guess from your expression that it might be even more overwhelming. But I think you still are through it and are also living the joys of building something that you really like. So kudos to you on that.
I think at some point you start accepting it, and that's when you start to really enjoy the process.
Yes.
So
Yeah, looking at the process, I'm sure you must have gone through different moments of truth in your journey. So I would love to know from your perspective about Anya, any moment of truth or any turning point that you felt that was basically that turned the entire game around.
So I would like to share two moments. One, which was very early in my journey. So when I was just exploring, I had not set up a retail store. Obviously, as an entrepreneur, you're looking into the space. So you attend these expos. So I went to a jewelry exhibition, which is one of the largest in India, just for my market research and stuff. And I was exposed to the entire jewelry world at once. And you wouldn't believe that what I had as a seed in my mind turned into a large, very, very large idea, because I knew lab grown was growing. I was doing my research, and that the whole thing culminated to me saying I would do something in this space. But when I actually saw the potential that jewelry has, and India specifically has, the kind of exports we do in jewelry. So when I looked at all of these jewelers, I guess it was around 2,000 plus jewelers exhibiting at one place, and forms of jewelry I had never been exposed to. And that's when it hit me hard that this is something not just for a few decades. You could probably build like a century old legacy brand in this. And this is something that would stay far beyond my lifetime. I think when I came back, I was like, okay, a lab grown is just a thing. I got so intrigued and passionate towards jewelry in general that I said that, you know what, I'm going to be spending the rest of my life in jewelry. So that was one turning point which gave me conviction. People often ask me, you left the job. So you won't believe I left my gate at around 8th of October. And my first retail store I launched on 13th of October. So people ask me, how did you get the conviction to do a retail store so early in your journey? I said, because I already saw the potential of jewelry, and I damn knew in my head that I had to do this for the rest of my life. So when you know you're going to be doing this, then how does it matter if you do 6 months later? Might as well do it 6 months earlier. So I think that was the thing. Another turning point for me has been very lately the recent sort of pre-seed round that we've closed with a couple of more angels and like a VC company on getting onboarded. It's still not out in the news, so I can't name that. But we did the first store last year, October, then the second one which is in HSR, and the second one in Whitefield in around March. But it took us six months to kind of do the next store, and you won't believe we're doing 2 stores next month. So going from 2 to 4 in a span of 1 month, that is another turning point, because I know now it's just going to be higher and higher from here, right? You can't, I guess the speed or the velocity and the way the team is growing, it's not the same what what I was seeing the last couple of months. This is just like we've hired probably like 10 to 15 people in a span of a week, and 2 store interior works going on full-fledged. It just gives you goosebumps as to, oh, did I even imagine this for the first 1 year? No. If you ask me, Himani in October last year, she was nervous as to what's going to happen with this retail store. Will I just like wrap it up, or will I be able to do this? To now saying, hey, we're going to be having 4 stores in the next 1 month. It's a crazy, crazy ride. And it's definitely a big turning point from here on.
Yeah, I think the story has been really good so far. Also, I'm learning a lot about this space because I'm speaking to you on it. I have also, of course, for this, I had to also research a bit, and I was intrigued and curious myself. And I think I'm going to research more about lab grown diamonds and going to come to you ASAP on that. But I was just going through and skimming through your LinkedIn post, and one LinkedIn post really caught my eye. You said usually people have their family jewelers, and you wanted Anya Diamonds to be their family jeweler. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I've mostly stayed away from my home ever since I was preparing for JE and then college and then settling down in Bangalore for the last 8 years. I've seen a lot more people like me migrate from other cities to the top metros. And often what happens, we don't have our family dwellers with us. And when you go to any of these large chains, while they're great, I mean, no offense, but it's a very commoditized experience from design to handling. Everything is just super standard. There's rarely a feeling of joy of someone like just talking to me, anything but the jewelry, right? And like, there's no aspect of that human connect of saying, oh, you know what, we used to eat samosas there, that place had a good thing. So I think this is one of the things I felt my personal experience over the last 8 years shopping around jewelry was very, very commoditized. Every store I used to go had these box kind of structures. Every place I would see sales staff treating and talking in a similar way, almost like probably if you just replace them with another person, you wouldn't even find a difference, right? That's the
Yes.
language. So I think that was one thing we wanted to change at Onya. And when people enter Onya, the first thing is we really don't talk about the pieces, what you want to see and stuff like that. We naturally just first ask them whether they know about lab-grown diamonds or not, and then kindly explain them the thing. And we're more consultative. We like, okay, what do you really like? What do you like doing when you're free on the weekends? What do you do? Because trying to understand the lifestyle of the person a bit more. Where do you come from? And things like these. And people are so open sharing, right? You won't believe there have been customers I've personally attended coming from Indore talking about their food stories. And a lady coming from Jammu and hugging me after the whole purchase because she felt like I had some similarity with her daughter. And like there are numerous such moments where I can tell there were relationships that were being built at the store which lasted much beyond a transaction. It all starts with just casual conversations about where they come from, where their lifestyle is, then helping them choose the pieces, sometimes telling them not to pick pieces, which are even better for my business, but I end up telling, no, ye aapko nahi lena chahiye. So I think nobody does that. And a family jeweler would actually kind of create that environment for you to make the right decision. They would never guide you towards something wrong. They don't have like a mindset of just profits from a customer, but more like, okay, you know what, this person is my own. If I'm going to do something for them, it's going to stay with them for longer. And, मुझे उनकी दुआओं में भी याद रहना है. I don't want that to go away. So I think some of those aspects were baked in. And that's what I meant. When you go to an Onya store, you will feel like you went to a family jeweler. You can have conversations for as long as you want. And you will not feel that you're talking to the sales staff. A part of me is ingrained in every person out there because I've told them one thing: don't sell a piece. Just make sure you bring a smile on their face. So as long as they do that thing right, I think we go back home and we sleep peacefully, having done that right. So I think
Very beautiful.
Those are the things that differentiate.
I think customer connect at the end of the day is a core truth that every founder should understand. And also, if you have won the customer, then that's even a better word of mouth than your digital media. So I think creating that experience for them, making the customer the core of your business, creating that entire aura of authenticity, I think that solves for trust, it solves for credibility and a lot of other factors. And they keep coming back to you then. And they remember that as a piece of not a purchase, but they remember that as an experience altogether.
Yeah, so I think interestingly, someone was asking me, a very big brand which recently got funding also, how do you guys have so many Google reviews? Like compared to the time that we have been in the market, given we are a very young player, I think it's not just about, say, we asking review to a person, but it's also about people who've understood what efforts and what lengths we went to deliver those products. Because not all of our orders are from off-the-shelf inventory, right? We do a lot of customized orders, personalized orders, engravings. I have sat and sketched engravings and designs and stuff like that, right? So people, despite the challenges that we have gone through, know that how hard it is to kind of do to that level of sophistication and expertise. So we end up getting these messages when they share their stories that, you know what, I envisioned something. Literally, there was a customer who said, you know, I had a vision when I gave you a picture, and then when the product came out, it was better than what I was expecting. Like it's beyond the expectation, and that has happened not once, twice, but multiple times. So I think those reviews are just a way for the world to know that people trust us and people love us. But I know the memories that we've created with them, which is what keeps us going every day. So yeah.
Yeah, I think usually in fashion, people do have, when you're working with a personal designer, people do have a fair idea of what they want and they're really held on to it. But in jewelry, it's the other way around. I think the person who is creating or curating that jewelry has a much more better understanding of what the customer wants. And if they crack it and they give even a better vision of what the customer had, then I think it's a top up for the customer who is purchasing that piece of jewelry and owning it.
Yeah, completely agree. I think all this while we were standardizing so much that we've missed that element of personalization.
Yes.
The whole purpose Onya exists is says that it looks good on you. So it's not about just following trends. It's not about what a ex-celeb wears. It's not about what's being promoted on TV advertisements, but it's just about your vision or your expression. So a lot of our TG is millennials and they're working people, and they really just come with a simple thing that, you know what, I've liked this design. Can you just make this for me in the way I want? Could you just write this, which is locking up a date or a phrase. I have done so many engravings like until forever, like the engravings have such like never doubt I love you. I mean, there is so much emotion to the jewelry that we've been able to create. To be very honest, more than the customers, I feel I am truly blessed to have them come into and walk into Onya and give us a chance to create such pieces, because these are the pieces that stay with them for life. I mean, there's no better feeling than encapsulating their journey or their moments into a piece that sticks with them forever. So the pleasure has been just all mine. I mean, I take full credit and
Yeah. So I think with that tone set, I would love to know if there are any future launches, anything exciting that is planned for Onya, the next big milestone. How would you envision that?
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of interesting stuff coming up as we talk. We have the Jayanagar store going live on 6th of August. And we have our Indranagar store on 100 Feet Road going live early September, which is like we're trying for 1st September. We also plan to have 30 more stores by the end of next year. Along with that, yes, there will be some more newses. We are planning to do something nice, but I can't reveal that just yet. But it's definitely going to be something nice for sure. It's a collection of ours, which we are still brewing up. That would definitely come by October. And there will be a large gala event that we plan to conclude that particular collection, which would happen by New Year's. But yeah, I think it's just picked up another gear, as I was mentioning earlier. And it's just more and more that I see Onya all around now. And the same is going to happen with you all as well. I'm pretty sure you'll see more of Onya.
Yes, so I think 30 more stores. Wow.
Yes.
If that's the plan, I think it must have taken a lot of grit, determination, velocity, as you spoke before, and acceleration that requires to, be persistent, be there, and actually go through the entire process and, establish the brand that you've created with all your heart. With that being said, I would love to understand, especially for our young target audience over here who's listening to the podcast, any piece of advice in this entrepreneurial journey, any skills that need to have, what is that mindset that they need to have to actually crack something that they really want to build out?
So I think entrepreneurship, I have always been that person who was a slight rebel of questioning everything. So at my workplaces, I would question, very early days, my first job, I would question everything. That's the first sign of, you're thinking from first principles. You're not taking things as is. The second is curiosity. So deeply, deeply curious. If you are deeply curious about a space and you are ready to dive in fully, there is no amount of friction or, challenges or obstacles that can stop you from doing what you really want to do. And third one, which I think is most important, and I would touch upon because that's very close to my heart. A lot of us have a sort of a childhood that we've been, nurtured or parented in a way, as we call it. Sometimes it's positive reinforcement, sometimes it's negative reinforcement. But what happens is that we kind of see the world as to how the world has made us to believe what we should be. So I think that's where being a true entrepreneur is important. So I'll tell you, when I was first doing my entrepreneurial stint, it was not just this with Anya, but a brief while back during COVID. And I realized that as entrepreneurs, the one thing that we need to know is we should not seek validation. What happens, the society is full of validations, and we keep seeking validation, sometimes from our friends, sometimes from our life partners, sometimes from our mentors at work. And I was a person who used to be like this, like I've always been the light person in the room. So I would be like, oh, you know what? I have this amazing idea, and I would go tell 10 people, and everyone will poke holes into it. And then you'll be disappointed. I think stop looking for validation outside, be it investors, mentors, leaders, people close to you, family, relatives. Trust me, when you want to do something and you go out and tell people, you would hear all kinds of views, and none of that matter. None of that matter, because if you have the dedication, curiosity, and passion to build it, you will build it. So when I stopped looking for validation outside is when I started to build something great. So that's my closing thought on that one, that stop seeking validation.
Great. I think with that, I think we had a wonderful time together, Himani. And I personally learned a lot about this industry. I learned a lot about lab-grown diamonds, learned a lot about your journey, how authenticity, aspiration plays a very important role. How do you lock into customer moments? How do you build personalization? And also, very importantly, how do you make the customer feel at home with Anya? So I think really nice listening to you, listening to your story today. And thanks all for listening in and tuning into this podcast called Brand New You. Would love if you can like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. And if you'd love to hear more thoughts, please feel free to share any comments that comes to you. And with this, signing off the podcast called Lab to Life. Thank you so much.
Just one thing to add. Please do visit Anya stores, as well as come have fun when we do our launches at Jayanagar and Indiranagar. Thank you so much.